Hey everybody, it's Corporal Sharks. Welcome to my channel. Now I've been asked from time to time what the difference between marksmanship shooting and combat shooting is. Now in a time period where 20-somethings with big old bushy beards and tattoos all over the place and happen to own an AR-15 and play Call of Duty a ton with no military or law enforcement experience call themselves operators, which in my time the only operators that existed was the lady who answered the phone when you dialed 0. And then you've got the uber marksman who's got an eye patch and a multi-$1,000 gun and fancy sights that I can't even describe. The line between combat shooting and marksmanship shooting really isn't that difficult. The two are actually related. Let me explain. Now, I've always been a firm believer that it all starts with basic marksmanship shooting. You need to learn to hit what you're aiming at, and that all starts with marksmanship. Now, the big differences between combat shooting and marksmanship shooting are subtle, but they're important. Marksmanship shooting starts with, let's go through the most important factors of marksmanship shooting. Number one, concentration. You need to be able to have your mind focused on a singular task to hit exactly what you're aiming at. Number two is going to be your trigger. If you have a sloppy trigger, you've got nothing else. Number three is going to be your sight alignment. If your sights aren't right and your trigger's not right, you're not going to hit what you're aiming at. From there, you can go into stance, grip, breathing, all that kind of stuff all factor into marksmanship shooting. The difference with combat shooting is this. It starts with what I call mindset. Now, mindset is a state of mind that I'm going into combat. I am going to win and I will never give up. Doesn't matter what happens to me at that point, but I've got to have that mindset, number one. Number two, again, is going to be trigger. If you don't have trigger control, you're never going to hit what you're aiming at. Now, there's a big debate whether it's front sight, sight alignment, or trigger. My answer is this. Sight alignment cannot affect how I pull that trigger. However, how I pull that trigger will affect my sight alignment. So trigger has to come first. Sight alignment is actually fourth in my opinion. You've got mindset, you've got trigger, then you've got grip. You need to have a firm grip on what you're doing. Combat shooting is dynamic. Combat shooting is ever-changing. Combat shooting is a lot of movement. It is a lot of thinking. It is a lot more than standing, concentrating, aligning your sights, and pressing your trigger. In combat shooting, if you can't send follow-up shots through a weak grip, you basically got one shot. So, again, mindset, trigger control, grip, then sight alignment. Yes, sight alignment comes into play. Now, as far as stance goes anywhere with combat shooting. Stance is all about movement. You've got to be able to move. In basic marksmanship, there's essentially two stances. One is the isosceles, where I've got both my feet 90 degrees to the target, about shoulder width apart. I've got my arms out straight, both arms out straight, forming a triangle between my shoulders and the firearm. With that, slow, concentrated fire. It's effective. Now the other stance is called a weaver stance. From there, your support foot forward, your strong foot back at about a 45-degree angle from the target now. I'm going to have my strong arm out straight and locked. I'm going to have my support arm underneath, elbow tucked in. I want as much pressure on that firearm as I can get to keep it in place. But again, slow, controlled fire. Those are your two essential stances for marksmanship. Now in combat shooting, it's a little different, because combat shooting isn't slow, concentrated fire. It's dynamic, it's movement, it is constant change that you have to stay on top of. So what I do, my feet about shoulder width apart, my knees bent, and I'm basically taking a boxing stance. Think as if you were fighting with somebody and you wanted to move around a lot. From there, both elbows are bent, but I've still got to push-pull with my firearm. And now, I'm balanced. I can move. So combat shooting, you got to be able to move and think at the same time. Now in marksmanship shooting, what we're trying to do is focus on one spot on our target. We're trying to get all our bullets as close together as we can. In combat shooting, it's a totally different scenario. I've got to move, it's dynamic. I've got this entire target to work with. I don't want all my bullets in one spot. I want to spread them out. I want to do as much damage in as many places as possible, but I still need to keep them on target. Let me show you what I mean. I'll be doing all of this with my SIG P320 and 9mm. The first 5 shots will be marksmanship. I'll follow up the following 10 rounds in combat style. See if you can see the difference. Well, there you have it. I know it's a little bit confusing, and I probably didn't explain everything there is to know about everything in this short video. But the fact is, just because you're a really good marksmanship shooter doesn't mean you're going to make a decent combat shooter. And you can't be a good combat shooter without learning the basics of marksmanship. So in all that, the two are combined, yet dynamically different. And even though the two are closely related, they're two very different disciplines. And what it always comes down to is practice. You have to practice properly. The old saying of practice makes perfect isn't absolutely true. The truth is, perfect practice makes perfect. If I'm practicing the wrong thing over and over again, am I ever going to get it right? Absolutely not. Practice a lot. If you ever want to get good at anything, practice. Well, there you go. Hope you guys learned a little something. I know I learn something every time I make these videos. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. Drop a like. Any questions, comments, leave them in the comments down below. Again, thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate you guys, and I hope you get something out of my videos. As always, be good people and never give up. Two inch! Move, 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 move. I can move.